Emisión.net.
Hello again and welcome to Letter from England, broadcasting for AC Press and the Spanish Evangelical Alliance. My name is Jonathan Dawson. The new state school subject of citizenship is causing a furore in Spain at the moment. It's said that recent clashes between the government and the Catholic Church over the issue have not affected the weekly radio broadcast of Catholic Mass. Nevertheless, it's being moved from Radio 1 to Radio 5 in what, surely by some, is perceived as a snub. This means the weekly broadcast goes to a station with less audience and joins the evangelical, Jewish and Muslim programs already broadcasting on that frequency. RNE, the state broadcaster, says the changes are due to new weekend schedules and that religious broadcasting will actually have more space on the new station. RNE is to continue the Catholic program Frontera, a half-hour show which includes discussions, news items from that church, and reports from Catholic aid agencies. And the broadcaster is also to carry on putting out Fe y Convivencia, Faith and Coexistence, which alternates between Protestant, Jewish and Muslim content. It's an interesting situation that brings the Catholic Church a little bit more into line with the religious minorities in Spain. And indeed, one gets the impression that more and more the powers that be are beginning to treat the Catholic Church as another religious group rather than the dominant one. Well, RNE hopes to renew its image and leadership position in the radio market, and Luis Fernandez, chairman of the state broadcaster, says this: "We want listeners once again to say we heard it on RNE. RNE is now 70 years old and has a great future," he says, "with new sounds, presenters, words and music." And one of the new aspects appears perhaps to be less deference towards the once all-powerful Catholic Church. But who would have thought that a nice concept like citizenship could lead to such controversy and conflict? And yet this new school subject, due to be introduced into secondary schools in some areas of Spain from next week when term restarts, is now being questioned by teachers as well. The classes initially will be given to around 200,000 14-year-olds, but the National Association of Departmental Heads says the syllabus is dead and a failure before it even gets off the ground, on the basis that it divides society. The chairman of the association, Julian Martin, says most teachers are reticent about the new subject and unsure about teaching it because, quote, "they don't understand why it has to assume the roles of priest and psychologist." There is concern over the textbook selected for the subject, given that any book on this issue comes from a particular ideological viewpoint. There is a fairly widespread view that the subject takes on roles which should be left to families, such as the development of behavioural patterns and attitudes, and perhaps more particularly from an evangelical perspective, moral and spiritual values. Martin himself comments, "The state is trying, with preconceived ideas, to educate a society which has become empty through watching television. Youngsters lack values and principles, and the school is going to become a hospital for curing the souls of teenagers. The human rights and constitution subject, like most European countries have, is fine, but what you cannot do is to go into moral values, into the conscience of pupils, or into personal matters, which should be taught at home, and that every pupil should choose for themselves." Well, an opinion with which I think most evangelicals would sympathise. Martin says he understands parental fears, given that some teachers might be tempted to teach their own ideological viewpoints in the classes. He also says that some teachers are frightened of playing the psychologist, and that such things are best left to parents to teach their children. But perhaps the most controversial aspect of the response to the subject, we can't really say the subject itself, seeing as classes haven't begun yet, is the fact that 13,000 parents have said that they will remove their children from the subject, which is theoretically compulsory, and many more are expected to join them when term actually begins. Remove them through an act of conscientious objection. The controversy has been fueled by the rather threatening words expressed from the Ministry of Education in response to that move and to the promotion of conscientious objection, and the noises that have been made about the importance of the subject in a democratic society. In this respect, the Federation of Evangelical Organizations, the FEDERE, has also expressed itself by saying that it is generally in favor of the citizenship subject. There are aspects, perhaps, about which it's concerned and would like to speak to the ministry about, but that it's vital in a democratic society that children are taught about such things. However, they don't seem to approve of the democratic right of conscientious objection in this case and side with the government, not as vehemently, to be fair, but nonetheless they take the government's line that conscientious objection, and certainly the promotion of it, is inappropriate with regard to this subject. A rather different tack has been taken by the Spanish Evangelical Alliance, whose General Secretary Jaume Llena says that whilst he is not himself advocating conscientious objection, recognises the right of parents to adopt such a stance. And yet the Alliance has questioned and indeed is unhappy by and large with the citizenship subject syllabus. They do agree that there are important parts of it which have value for students, particularly perhaps in the areas of sexual education, respect, human rights, and so on, but question whether this is the best way to do it. And certainly their main argument is against the state taking over what should be, they believe, the role of the family in inculcating moral values into their children. 14 legal complaints have been lodged against the government at the court in Andalusia, and Luis Carbonell, chairman of the Confederation of Catholic Parents Associations, says a major demonstration is being prepared for the run-up to Christmas. And this subject is certainly going to run. Whether citizenship limps along behind, we shall have to wait and see. Thank you for listening once again to Letter from England, broadcasting at emission.net each week. Goodbye for now.
Emisión.net